God, I love that remixed intro. Welcome back to the LCS and the Lock-In Tournament as we head into the final day of Group Stage. After an incredible premiere of the Lock-In Tournament, we'll see where the teams fall in the bracket with our games today. I welcome back, of course, Emily and Mar from our stellar start of the season, as well as an old friend and Jake Spawn Tiberi to the desk for week 2. Not just the desk, Spawn, but North America as a whole. Welcome, my friend. We're glad to have you. How are you?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm actually really good. I had a rough morning. I'm not going to lie, getting everything set up and trying to figure everything out. I was a little bit grumpy. And then one of our great producers mentioned that we should have breakfast burritos. And then Dash and I got breakfast burritos from the same place. I think we actually got the exact same breakfast. It was hella cute. And now I'm feeling good. I'm feeling happy. I got a full belly, and I'm looking forward to some League of Legends.
I was going to say, at least if the desk goes well or doesn't, we'll know why. It's because we ate the same thing.
You guys both get sick?
Exactly. Yeah, midway through, it must be the burritos.
I'm lucky.
That said, one thing, you bring up a good point here, Spawn, which is just that I am so excited for when the world does open back up safely, and all of us who on this broadcast team, this expanded broadcast team, finally have an opportunity to go out, have a drink, get a glass of wine, eat a meal together. But until then, we'll have to do with the LCS on the weekends. Let's get a refresher of how we enter the final day of the lock-in groups. Group A has 100 Thieves, Team Liquid, and TSM tied in first at 2-1, fighting for bracket seeding, with Golden Guardians just behind them at 1-2. Then over in Group B, we've got Evil Geniuses. They're a lock for the number 1 seed, while FlyQuest fight for their spot out of the group stage with 2 games today. And if the way those teams are played surprises you, don't worry. You're not the only ones, as Week 1 had some pretty wonky results based on preseason expectations. Let's talk about it a bit. Emily, what's your take so far on the way things have broken down?
I think the big shocking thing is Evil Geniuses. I'm not sure how shocked people are now, but initially I think people thought they were going to be kind of middle of the pack, and then it was going to be TL and C9, and then possibly 100T, because again, they were taking that Golden Guardians core. But EG has actually been the standout team thus far, in my opinion. So that was pretty interesting to me.
I also think some of the teams that are sitting at like 1 and 2, while that might not be the impressive record, I think the way that they actually played those games was super surprising. Golden Guardians 1 and 2, but they almost beat TSM aside for this Baron throw. And Dignitas looked better than you would have thought with some of their solo laners. Revenge is looking good. I think a lot of the teams that people did not look at very favorably actually impressed in Week 1.
Yeah, and I think that with everything like this, you have to think that some of these teams have players coming in late. Some teams are playing with a lot of subs actually coming in. And I think the surprising thing was that some teams looked very uncoordinated in areas that you maybe wouldn't have expected, and other teams actually looked quite polished. So I just continue to look forward to seeing how these teams expand and grow. I've heard from a lot of the coaching staff that they are using this time for experimentation and trying to figure out that style that they want to play for now the one season. And we'll see if they're able to get their seasons on track.
That's the name of the game right there, development week over week, especially here in the lock-in tournament. Now the day kicks off with Dignitas looking to lock their spot in the knockout stage up there against Cloud9. FlyQuest, though, they premiered their starting jungler in Jose Diodo in Game 3. I could not be more excited for that matchup there against Sven Skaren. Of course, Team Liquid TSM, another marquee matchup facing off in our 4th game of the day. There we will see Santorin, of course, make his debut as the starting jungler for Team Liquid. Another big pickup and recent development this week. Now, in preparation for our 2nd week of lock-in items, they were a point of contention both in the community but also in our meetings from last week to this one. And one choice in particular became a hot topic. It was a purchase by TSM's new top laner, Huni, on Ornn.
Yeah, so when I'm looking at this, I know people had their initial reactions. It's like, what in heck is he doing? Or, this makes sense because of lane. When I look at this, I'm looking at what Ornn's role is. I know Alram mentioned this on the desk last week, but here you're looking at the Ornn to kind of lose lane gracefully and then go into help setting up these team fights for TSM, especially with the Maokai and the Jhin bot lane. So it's not that big a deal that he's losing lane, which is why I was kind of down on the tier item buy, just because it delays it a bit, and you're already expecting him to lose lane anyway. He's not really going to get dove over and over with the composition on the other side, so I was not a huge fan.
Yeah, and I think there's points you can make about situations that it could be good, and I think people debated some of those, but when you look at the specific situation, which I think is the most important thing, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for Huni to build it here. This is the moment in the game where he built it. Look at his items at the bottom of the screen, and look at his health and mana. The thing about Ornn's passive is they changed it so that when you build a HP or mana item in lane, you only get the proportional amount to your percentage. So for the tier, that's about 50 mana that he got in lane. He could have built a Ruby Crystal and got the full value. He could have built armor. He's up against double physical topside with the Graves and the Recton. You would have got a lot more value out of that. He also has double biscuits still in his inventory. So if you're concerned at all about mana, which is it's in a fine spot right now. His mana pool is fine for right now. But even if he thought he was going to get low, he has the double biscuits there. And so this delays your main build path so much. And again, a game where, Emily's talking about wanting to become this frontline for your team. It's just not worth it. And people talk about resell value, but that only kicks in when you actually sell it back. And until that point, you've just delayed your core build in a situation where you're fine. The only time he actually runs out of mana is when Solo fake recalls. He blows all his mana on the wave to try and push it, and then Solo pops out of the brush and messes him up in a trade. So, hey, that would have been pretty good to have some armor there, dude.
Yeah.
So I think it was just one of those situations where you can debate it all you want, but when you look at the specific situation, it didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion, and on this, or rather in this specific instance, maybe it was the wrong buy, but the conversation is made interesting by the item's reduction in cost, now only about 400 gold, the amount that it refunds you to 80, so you'll only lose 120, of course, as Mark likes to point out, and rightfully so. That only happens once you resell it. Until then, it is a 400 gold sink, but either way, players and us alike figuring out the item meta as we roll along week from week. Another itemization standout, though, from TSM's roster. Great that they all came from TSM last week. Support, Sword Art, Imperial, Mandate, Maokai. It was Mark who wanted it all week long, but Emily, I'm coming to you on the topic.
Yeah, so Mark finally got his Imperial Mandate, Maokai. We've seen this in LCK previously from Beryl and Keria before it was built last week in LCS. And I think it just offers you so much more AP damage if you're looking at what Maokai is going to end up doing. It was actually built by Ignar previously, but the reason why everyone looked at TSM is because A, Sword Art's damage was insane, and then B, as you can see from this clip, it just sets up this Jhin so well to go into team fights. And I thought Sword Art, the way he approached these team fights and the angles he was looking at to use that Maokai ult, really ended up setting up a lot of their success. Obviously, you can look at now his damage numbers, which were nuts. But so that's what kind of drew everyone's attention to it. But I really loved the build, and I really loved it in this team comp specifically for TSM.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing, right? Because once again, if you look at the role of the champion, historically, Maokai has been required as like a top laner to be the first one in kind of beefy frontliner. But when you're playing it from the support position, that's not necessarily the case. You can look for more creative angles, especially when you're playing it with a double frontline of the Olaf as well as the Ornn. And what we saw there is that Sword Art was able to use choke points really well to be able to set up those team fights. And when it's coupled with something like a Jhin, the lane is actually quite safe, and you can do a lot of poke and chip damage. So I thought the TSM actually drafted really well around it, gave Sword Art a lot of windows, and then obviously was able to pay it back through good itemization and good use.
I was saying, in a lot of ways, it fits perfectly with the style that we expected out of Sword Art in coming to the LCS. So perfect pickup for him. Which other supports jump towards it? We'll find out soon enough. Finally, Mark, you got your Moonstone Renewer, the one that you were hoping for,
Sure.
But I think the natural follow-up there is, was it everything that you were hoping for?
Let's just go with yes, because I love this item. And I like the experimentation that's being done with it right now with Staff of Flowing Waters as well. People are like, maybe you should build more support items at that point if you're already that far down the rabbit hole. So I like the experimentation. I think there are times you could argue it's been wrong that we've seen, but it's early in the season. No one knows exactly quite in pro play in particular how all these things are going to work out. And so I am happy to see the experimentation being done, especially in this tournament, even if afterwards we go, maybe it wasn't right there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is actually one of the situations where you could have said, okay, Dardoch could have gone damage because of the comp they were going for with kind of a more heavy poke initially. However, I actually really like it on something like a Lilia that's going to be in combat more often, so you get a lot more out of the unique on it. And all of that healing done. I think with Nidalee, it is a little bit more situational just because she's going to be attacking at range.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge fan of it from the jungle position. So I'll be the naysayer here, the non-believer. I think that like this combo is definitely very strong. But the reason that the AP junglers are so strong at the moment is that it does open up things like Lucian, Yone, maybe even Aurelia mid lane, and being able to play like solo AP from that jungle position. Also the fact that they're all tempo junglers and the ability to be able to put your camps on cooldown and be on map, like not hitting your camps, I think is really important at the moment. So I'm not a huge fan on those two specific champions. However, what I will say is, in my opinion, it has brought back top lane enchanters in a really fierce way. We saw Ivan top lane actually earlier today. I won't spoil how the game went. However, things like Karma and Lulu partnered up with things like Kindred, Graves, and Hecarim do really take over the top side of Summoner's Rift. And with the game being very snowbally and very fast-paced, in my opinion, at the moment, being able to access that Rift Herald at the start of the game through these enchanters is really important. So I think that there is certainly a place in the meta for it. I'm just not sure it belongs in the jungle.
I could not help but laugh when I woke up this morning to see Ken and Ivern as the matchup in the top lane. But it excites me because it means that nothing is figured out yet, right? And so for us to have not even seen these picks, for example, in North America while they're being played elsewhere, means that we still have a lot ahead of us here. Now, alongside some of those item purchases, we're also, of course, keeping a close eye on roster updates heading into day 4 of groups, and namely 2 teams that are going to get some play time with their starting junglers here today. First, foremost, FlyQuest still hunting for that first win of the group stage is bringing in Jose Diodo.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this pickup because you had to feel for FlyQuest over the offseason, you know, losing Power of Evil as in Santorin, but being able to pick up a superstar jungler in Jose Diodo. This guy had a fantastic Worlds run. I think that he is an incredibly exciting prospect, and the way he plays jungle is going to definitely warp the way FlyQuest play because he is a huge carry potential. Those Protect the Lee Sin comps or whatever they were running at Worlds as well, like this guy certainly has some insane pickups. So I do think that this is a guy that will be able to come in and have some immediate impact. I heard a couple of rumors that he was even scrimming on some hyping as well, so has some experience with the team, and this only points to good things for FlyQuest.
I hope that's the first and last time I hear the words Protect the Lee Sin composition. Emily, one of the other major jungle pickups and people that we'll be rather seeing out on the Rift for the first time this year is Santorin for Team Liquid.
Yeah, and he looks like he's ready to take on the world.
He's gonna fight somebody, right?
He's
like mad.
Which is funny because he's like the nicest person, actually. I rate Santorin really highly and have in previous years for his jungling and some of his early pathing. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he gels with Jensen because I know one of my major criticisms, actually one of my only criticisms of Jensen has been that I've never seen him have that like insanely good mid jungle with anyone. I don't think it's ever been like terrible, but I've never seen that like insane synergy, and I want to see it out of these two. Like that's what I'm hoping for it. I've just been waiting for it.
I'm also really excited just because the matchup between them and 100 Thieves was already so close with Armao stepping in. He did a pretty good job over week 1. But, you know, Santorin was the all-pro jungler last year in summer. So, like, this is still going to be an upgrade, even if there is a bit of growing pains. Like, I'm excited to finally see the 5-man roster of Team Liquid take the Rift today.
Happy to have both of those guys with feet on solid ground here in North America. And while they will step out onto the Rift today, we do have to mention as well that Destiny has his visa approved. There it is. Not quite ready for play, but progress is progress. And while we talk about Destiny's visa approved, Jake, I think we got to talk about the guy who's had to play in his stead, Joey.
Yeah, and whilst, I'm really excited about getting as many OG pros into the LCS as possible, right? I do think it is really important to point out the fact that Joey did have a couple of really great games in week 1 of the LCS, and this is a guy that has got the stage experience as well. So whilst I'm sure that the Immortals lineup will love to play with their 5 intended starters, it's not like they are hurting all that much at the moment because I really do think that Joey has been a great replacement.
Well, with Santorin, one of our North American greats, coming back to the LCS, and his first match going down in Game 4 as he premieres on Team Liquid versus TSM. To hear more about how the team is feeling going into that clash, here's Spawn's boss, Coach Jack.
I'd say right now we're not intimidated by any team in the LCS because if we play to our peak, we will beat anyone. And I think our approach coming into the game is still around improvement. I think part of the kickoff tournament, with it having no implications on the rest of the standings or Worlds qualification, it's very important to win, but it's also important that we're able to get important data for the upcoming season. So we're looking to win, but we're also looking, to learn some stuff. I think it's pretty hard to evaluate how someone has done in their first week as a coach, but I think he's going to be good at it. So looking forward to seeing him coach for a long time. I hope the biggest takeaway that we get from this lock-in tournament is that we're a highly capable team with a lot of room for growth. So a lot of this is about testing some theories and gaining confidence for the season to come.
Testing theories, gaining confidence, all of that kind of tracks with what we have already been talking about through weeks 1 and 2. Just curious, your thoughts, Spawn, as someone who has a little bit more of a peek behind the curtains, being on the coaching roster over there. What has this 3-week period of a lock-in tournament allowed for teams to experiment and try that they maybe wouldn't have in a normal season?
Yeah, I mean, I guess first things first, and they were kind of talking on the LEC earlier today, which I found interesting, is you come into the season where the games count towards the standings, and maybe you play a little bit more reserved, a little bit more slow, and try and figure things out in the competitive landscape. The biggest thing, I think, for Team Liquid and lots of other teams within the LCS is immediately you can come out and try and play fast, proactive League of Legends that does seem to be more beneficial in a Worlds format, and I think that there is, just a really good case that this is what it's going to look like. They're more than happy to take the risks, and I think it leads to a really entertaining brand of League of Legends being played.
Well, Team Liquid, of course, looking to recapture some of that dominance that allowed them to four-peat in the past. That matchup is going down in Game 4 of the day. Don't go anywhere, because after the break, we hear from the Week 1 MasterCard Player of the Week and get a rundown of Perks' accomplishments heading into Game 1. Don't go anywhere.
Darshan a little low, Deathmark onto Hui, and they're starting to help, but Xiao is shut down by Stixay. I don't know how this one's going to turn out, and that's insane. Looper is going low, but he chrono breaks back. A double kill for Hui. A kill for Hui.
Is going up
I
again.
can't believe it. A triple kill.
We're going to
be the ace. Looper is down. CLT. Do you believe Kobe?
Did it! Are you kidding me? They're going to take down the undefeated team here at MSI.
And
I never doubted them! I never doubted them!
Holy crap.
Welcome back to the LCS Countdown. We are getting prepped for Game 1 of the day, Cloud9 versus Dignitas. Now, before we jump into that match, Riv had the opportunity to hear from Evil Genius's impact on his monstrous performance in Week 1 as our MasterCard Player of the Week.
Thank you very much, Dash. I am joined by the MasterCard's Player of the Week to start off 2021. It's EG Impact. Impact, first off, congratulations. How you feeling?
I don't know. Feeling like weird because to me, normally I didn't get MVP or that kind of thing. But first, it's not first time, but yeah, it feels nice.
Well, you were an incredible pressure point for the team in their 3-0 weekend. The community is singing your praises. How do you think you felt you played throughout the games?
I don't know. I don't know what is different. I'm just playing the same thing to me. Like, just win lane and how to snowball and just looking flank, or if it looks juicy and I'm looking flank or looking enemy champion. And yeah, I'm just looking win condition. So
it's like riding a bike. So do you feel like the lock-in tournament allows you to push yourself a little bit more? You said you're playing the same. Are you trying anything else?
I think it's a good thing I didn't get pressured too much. That's why maybe it looks fine. But I don't know, because normally I need to get pressure to play better, but this time I don't get pressure and my play is not bad, so
All right,
I don't know.
So what happens? The pressure comes on, they ban Renekton. What, are you ready for the Renekton ban?
I mean, they respect that my champion, so I will like it. I say, look at this, they ban Renekton, haha,
And Impact, final question. You've been with 7 different organizations over the past 8 years of League of Legends. Now with Evil Geniuses, how has it been getting to know the team over the past 2 months?
I mean, it is nice. They respect me and care about me more. I mean, there is, I think, never a bad team, I think everyone nice for gamer and they care about player. So yeah, I'm just happy that I can keep playing professional gamer.
Sounds like living evil is a pretty good side of life. Impact, thank you so much for joining me. Congratulations once again on the award.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we're going to throw it back to Countdown. Take it away, Dash.
Thank you very much, Riv. 7 teams, 8 years professionally, 1 world championship. That is a career that so many dream of, so many aspire to, and so few actually achieve. Great to see the success that he's found on our only undefeated team remaining in the tournament, Evil Geniuses. We'll get to them a little later on. Now, turning our attention towards that first game of the day, we saw the return of Perks to the mid lane for Cloud9. But for those of you who need a quick reminder as to why he's considered one of the best in the West, here's our friend from the LEC, Quick Shot, with Perks Oversimplified.
Cloud9 welcomes one of, if not the most accomplished Western player in all of League of Legends into the mid lane for 2021. So I thought I'd give you a quick rundown of the storied career of Luka Perkovic in Perks Oversimplified. As an amateur, Perks would hop from team to team until he landed on Gamers 2, a young European challenger squad owned by that one guy from SK Gaming. After a successful run in 2015, Gamers 2 underwent a rebrand and the young mid laner was officially G2 Perks, a name that would soon be known around the world. It was there that a new era started and Perks started rewriting the rules of European League of Legends. First being that Fnatic are not inevitable champions. With his first title, Perks would go to his very first MSI, which could have gone better. But he bounced back by collecting 2 more titles and then went back to MSI, where a solo kill had this guy calling Perks Baby Faker. After 4 consecutive European titles, Perks experienced his first finals loss, which proved one thing about the Croatian superstar. He would do whatever it took to win a game. Then came the greatest role swap in European history. Perks took on the bot lane and handily styled on the competition. As a bot laner, Perks earned Europe their first MSI championship and went on to compete in the World Finals, solidifying himself as a legend. Back in the mid lane, Perks! But in the LCS and Cloud9. As a European, I'm so happy for him. This has been Perks Oversimplified.
We're happy to have him too, Quick Shot. And while Cloud9 came into this matchup favorites over Dignitas, it is important to remember that there was some shakiness coming out of the gate for them, specifically when it comes to the tale of 2 Yones. We're talking Soligo and Perks.
Yeah, and I mean, it was really funny because they played back-to-back on that first day. Perks had a rough outing right out the gate. Neither had great laning phases, but Soligo was able to get a little bit more done with his team and actually take the W in that game. So it was a very fast contrast, especially given their 2 careers and whatnot, with Perks' long history and Soligo just starting out his. So I'm excited to see them actually match up, though, given that part of their careers. And I want to see what Soligo can do, and if Perks in the week off has worked better with his team, if he's ready to hit the ground running a little bit faster here and beat someone who I think a lot of people would expect him to be able to kind of dumpster.
Yeah, very tough first outing, but Emily, after that tough loss there on Yone, we saw a pretty quick pivot by the whole of C9 in terms of team comp and strategy.
Yeah, so the big overreaction, I think, of day one was that, like, look, Perks is only going to play for himself and only play the lane and not play for his team, which if you've studied his history, even coming from his bot lane play, that's certainly not true. And I think we did see an immediate pivot in the next game to him supporting Blabber with the Galio mid pick. Not that it makes him a support, but I'm just saying you're putting a lot more of the carry impetus and a lot more of the proactivity pressure onto Blabber to make plays. And I think it worked out really well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Perks adjusts and how this team overall comes together. I mean, obviously this is a time to experiment and to get that synergy going. And I think they could end up being a really, really strong mid-jungle duo.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying there, Emily, because I think that a lot of the mid-jungle duos right now are based around kind of the pairing of champions and whether you're playing towards the jungle and facilitating that role or whether you want to have impact through ganks and then be able to open up the rest of the map. And my gut feeling is the exact same as yours. Like, Perks and Blabber, they should be able to do both. These are 2 players that are elite within their role, and I think they are going up against a team where, as Dardoch, you have to have more impact for your lanes. You're one of the veterans of this Dignitas lineup. You have to be able to help your young laners out, and you have to be able to take the battle towards a laning phase to be able to then transition it into things like the river and the opponent jungle. The reason to do that, it's just a simpler game plan. At times, it's much easier to execute, and when you're going up against a team like Cloud9, that ease of execution is certainly something I'm looking for.
And I mean, Dardoch did have a pretty incredible week 1. He only got 1 win in it, but he did bust out the Moonstaff Nidalee, which was pretty good still for his team. He was one of the better performing players in that game. His Taliyah game was incredible. His Karthus game, not quite as much, but I like that he's innovating right now and trying out new things. And I'm excited to see him go up against Blabber, who also had a fantastic week. These are probably the 2 best junglers in Group B going head-to-head.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm talking about, Mark. Like, I really agree with you. I think the Nidalee and the Taliyah were great. And then the Karthus is something that, like, that's playing for yourself. And I think that we saw that it was a little bit more difficult for Dignitas to be able to do. So I think that, a little bit more Nidalee, a little bit more Taliyah, a little bit less of the Karthus, maybe less Lilia for this guy. And I think that will lead for his team to have some success.
For years, I've been trying to find my way to Mark's heart. Turns out the quickest path is through a Moonstaff. All right, let's take a look at predictions here for our last day of group stage games here in the lock-in tournament. Again, we already know, unfortunately, that CLG is
Wow,
and if we take a look at our 5 games, perfect alignment. Are you kidding me? It's
This
been
is
1 week.
terrible.
No one's taking IMT?
No, normally it takes so much longer for y'all to get on the exact same page. And you're telling me after the wild, wonky results of last week that you feel it's this definitive? Explain yourselves.
Did they all
I
just
don't
go
know.
off one email? I mean, I'm not sure. What? I'm actually really surprised. Like, I think the thing I waffled the most was that IMT FlyQuest game because I'm not sure what Jose Diodo is going to look like with the team. As Spawn already said, obviously he has more of this like carry jungler style. He's used to receiving a lot of resources, so we're wondering if that's going to give FlyQuest more of a direction than they had in week 1. I'm actually really surprised that we all match across the board, though. That's really boring, guys.
So you just cited FlyQuest Immortals as possibly the closest for you, Mark. Was that likewise the hardest one to call?
Yeah, I thought I was picking the upset when I picked FlyQuest. I mean, I know Jose Diodo is great and all, but he's just not. We haven't seen him yet, and Immortals actually looked decent last week, so I don't know.
I'm sitting here thinking, how did no one take TSM? Like, obviously, I'm sitting here in the Liquid top, so I'm not going to be the person taking TSM. But at the same time, like, Liquid's only had 2 days with their jungler coming in here, and I think that this is one of those things where time is important.
I don't think I've ever hoped harder for all of you to be wrong. Just 0-5 on the day. That's what I'm hoping for right now. All right, time to see who comes out on top as we send it over to freaking Kobe for game 1.